Well, hello again, YouTube. It's Petey. Today's Sunday. I had randomly popped over to the auction site and I picked up this IK Multimedia irig mini amp. So this is a 7.5 watt 4-inch speaker, runs on 6 AA batteries. Plug them in, 12-volt input, and with a speaker out. It's a 7.5 watt chip amp in here. And this USB will set this amp up to plug into the IK Multimedia amplitude 4. Which, if you've never used amplitude, it's just really good sounding amp modeling software. And there's all kinds of pedals and rack effects in it. It's a really good looking software. Like the gear looks really cool in amplitude. It's good. It's good. Like the interface is just really well thought out. It's easy to use. Like, I love amplitude. It looks complicated with all this stuff up here, but it really isn't. And they give you stuff that just makes sense, like, you know, front panel, extra controls for the noise gate down here. And not only is it just all of the amplifiers that are available, there's stop boxes and there's rack effects. And all of that stuff, to me, IK Multimedia, they really do a good job with the sound quality. And it seems to me when I'm using IK Multimedia, I'm having a top shelf experience. Like for me, it doesn't seem to get better than this software. It looks so cool. It sounds really good. I have an IK Multimedia rig here. It's kind of a long story. There's 3 pedal boards. I think it's 28 effects. Then it goes to this computer, which is the top of the line that Dell made back in like 2004. It's a ridiculous, huge computer with a stainless steel chassis. The chassis weighs 45 pounds. It's full of cooling fans, and that retailed for $7,000, this computer, okay? Of course, that was the introductory retail price when it came out as the flagship for Dell computers. I found that thing at Goodwill for 26 bucks, put a new hard drive in it, and it's a music computer. So coming out of this software, I have some rack gear. I have a stereo compressor with a gate. I have a direct box set up, and then something called an Oasis modulation process, a morphing modulation processor. It's a rack mount unit with an expression pedal that morphs in between 2 really huge complex stereo effect patches. And then it goes to the board, to the mixing board. So that setup with, it's got analog pedals, there's the digital modeling with the computer, and then there's rack mount gear, and then it goes to a really high-end Fostex recording board. It's got built-in effects on it, and there's proper outboard gear connected to that. This is all like really, really high-quality setup that I have When you think of petey, it's usually stuff that I've taped together from Goodwill or soldered myself. My old rig is really something else. And it sounds phenomenal. So I have a real lot of faith in IK Multimedia. I absolutely love that company's stuff because it's intuitive. It's easy to figure out for me. I could always make it do what I needed it to do relatively quickly. And they did a really good job with the way that it looks aesthetically, being easy to figure out how to hook it up, even with the MIDI stuff, even searching and finding preset names. It was just like everything made sense with IK Multimedia. So today I was over there and I saw this little amp. And of course it's like, you know, it was $10. I ended up getting it for $12, but then there's $13 for shipping. So it's more money than I want to spend. But how cool is this little amp? It's probably something gimmicky. I don't know if I will be hooking this up to the mixer or another Class D amp. Like I just built a 12-inch cabinet with its own 100-watt chip amp and a little gainy equalizer preamp for the front end. And that's going to be my center channel for my wet, dry, wet outdoor rig. I'll be running this Joyo American Sound, which is just, it's one of the best sounding clean guitar pedals you'd ever want to run into. The distortion is real distinct tweed Fender sound, but I like it cleaner just on that edge of breakup. I do run this tiny little noise gate on the side. It like sits sideways on the handle. So the cable is pointing down and then it comes up and goes into, I think the next thing that it goes into is the 918 all-in-one, which I seem to remember that I paid like $30 for this thing. They're $60 now. It's a really good sounding 3-knob distortion with a decent gritty overdrive. Then there's an effects loop, a Kuroki style delay, which is awesome, and the reverb I'm not so hot on. So for this rig, I have coming in, it goes through the Mimic. Then it goes to the Soul 19. We come out of the effects loop and we go into the American Sound and then out to this reverb pedal. I got this on a trade. I traded a guy a boutique germanium fuzz. That's a beautiful, really nice one, for a Boss TU2 tuner, the Mimic noise gate, and this Buying Baby Boomer reverb. Now, all the pedals had something wrong with it that I didn't notice when I was there doing the deal, but when I got them home, they all had stuff wrong with it. I had to replace the LED on here. I forgot what I had to do on the Boss, and there was something wrong with the Mimic too, but I ended up fixing them all. So that guy, like, don't trade your fucking broken pedals, or at least tell the guy. Like the deal was, you know, you were supposed to trade him working pedal. But this is, if you're looking for a budget reverb, this is the one I recommend. It's a really good sounding reverb pedal. If you're looking for a spring reverb, it's got a spring setting that's pretty realistic, but this has really smooth room and then hall sounds in it. So I might be able to take this little thing, put this on top of that chip amp, and then not use this stuff. Not have to bring with all of this. Just bring the this thing and set that up there. So again, what I'm getting at is I don't know how much I will utilize this thing. We have a Android phone. If I can get the Android phone to pair with this thing, I will be completely over the moon, and I'm sure I'll use it more than I'm saying I would. Why wouldn't you? It's got a little, it's got a plug on the back for a larger speaker. 7.5 watts isn't that bad. And if I wanted to, I could just plug it into one of my chip amps. You know, I've got, like I said, I could set this on top of the, it's a TPA 3116D2 Class D amp board that's rated at 100 watts. Now, in all reality, I'm probably only getting 40 watts out of it, but it's going to be louder than the 7.5 that this puts out. But honestly, I don't know if I would need it. We're not playing that loud, and if it's a center channel amp and I'm boosting the signal and trouble boosting it and stuff. So we'll have to see, like, does this thing make it into my live rig, or is it just a cute thing for the patio or test, you know, a little test amp? Mind you, when it comes to test amps, my favorite battery amp, like I've got the Marshall ms-2 and I've got the Fender Twin. And I didn't get any of these amplifiers new or gifted. I found them all when I was shopping at the Goodwill. These things would pop up and I would go, oh my goodness, there's a little mini twin and it's $6. You know, they got $5.99 on it. So my Fender, it's a different model than this. But it's, you know, it's probably close to being about the same thing. I thought that mine had chicken head knobs. It does have chicken head knobs on it. So I have an older version. I have like an 80s version of when they first made it, they had chicken head knobs on the Fender mini battery amp. That Fender with the chicken head knobs is really got something as far as a tone to it. Yeah, here, the mini deluxe. Fender MD20 mini deluxe. Do you see that up there? It's like it's gone, and I'd like to know what happened to it. The Fender mini amp, it was up here before. If you want to look at the screen, I could show you what I think it looked like.
It's right here. You just can't see it. This.
Ah, yes. So the Fender MD20, as we see here, eBay, $100.
How much?
100.
Wow, put that on the first sale.
Yeah, these are not cheap, Donna. They're $70 and $50 for these. Well, these this is the best one out of all of the battery mini amps. This Fender Mini Deluxe, and you know what? I didn't even think to try to run that through that 12. I've got to do that. This is probably the best. And I wonder how loud it is. There's no way that it's could compete with the 7.5 watts, the irig, with just a 9-volt battery. Again, this stuff, I always power it using lithium ion, which I'm charging some right now. But again, I don't know if I'm going to flip out and like really use the shit out of this thing. What I'm going to say off the bat is I hope to not have to open it or modify it. I'd rather keep this thing all in one piece and never even crack the screws on it. Hopefully everything works. Otherwise, my gears are going to start grinding about replacing the speaker or chopping it and making it into a smaller unit as just a little head. But I don't see myself really flipping out and falling in love with this thing unless I can get that phone thing to hook up. Because I'll tell you, I love amplitude stuff, and I'm not sure how much they give you on with this micro amp. Like if me buying it used, am I still going to have cracked copies of this stuff? That's again, it's going to be a learning curve, and I have separate laptops that I can install the software on. I can also try it out on my phone because I am going to want to get this to work. And I'll be honest with you, if I don't know how that would work with gigging, like this only has one sound you program into it. It looks like, and then there's clean drive and lead. So, it almost seems like I could use this to replace the head that I built, maybe, or in front of it would be, have this thing up there running as the amp sim instead of these pedals, the setup with the three pedals I was showing you, the American sound with the noise gate in front of it, and then the nice sounding reverb with this. This gives you the additional a distortion that's completely different than what the American sound has in it. More like a Black Sabbath distortion or more modern high gain sound. And then the delay. This is nice because there's one battery input, plus there's an effects loop, and this thing is quiet. Like the effects are all good except the reverb, and the reverb's passable. As in, if you're a reverb guy, you're going to want to have another reverb pedal. And like honestly, if you were going to like if I only had a couple of effects, like a minimal guitar rig for me, it would have to be reverb and delay and distortion. Like that's basically my sound, but can get a little wah in there. But as far as delay and reverb, for me, it's the more the merrier. So ideally, I could even just add the IK Multimedia in along with the rest of this stuff and use it as a buffer. But because really a real modern sound high gain, I'm not really going to be able to get with this setup with the American sound. That's the only bummer. I'm not going to be able to get like a triple rectifier or a Eddie Van Halen sound. Although when I read the review for the irig, the guy said he was able to very quickly dial in an exceptionally good sounding Eddie Van Halen sound. So I'm not coming on here with really high hopes saying, oh, this thing's going to change my rig and it's going to be a part of what I do. I'm more leaning towards it's going to be something that I use as a toy and for outdoor jams or little remote. If you're going to buy a pedal off some Craigslist deal, you could throw a travel guitar and a couple of cables in this thing, and it would be better. It would sound better with its 4-inch speaker than my favorite practice amp out of all these little amps. And I've built a ton of them here. I've got these little 3 watt and 5 watt class Ds that I run off of Minimus bookshelf speakers because they have a tweeter and I'm using amp modeling. I've just got a bunch of amps that I built. There's guitar amps all over the place in this house. But the one that I reach for when I reach for a battery amp is this, the smallest one. It's a micro amp, and looks like I'm going to have to actually grab it here. So this is the, oh my God, it's worn off, MA203. First Act, MA203. Oh boy. Here it is. If you ever see one of these, buy it and I'll give you an address. You can mail it to me. I love these things for just for testing, not necessarily for tube tone machine, but like when I build a pedal or any guitar circuit, this is what I plug in to test. Yeah, see? Yeah. I know there's other companies that make similar products, but what's so cool about, oh, here it is. 1140 delivery. Wow, 250 for a slash. See, some of these, the first act amps have more knobs on them. $12.99 free delivery. That's not bad. $8.50. See, that's just 15 for the whole thing. These, if you're like a luthier, or you do guitar string changes a lot, like my advice to you would be buy one of these and put medical tape all around the sides of it, the corners, so if you drop it, it can't break. Take the belt clip off and just tape it up with some padding, and then even tape over the speaker. Just tape over the speaker so it's muted because it's too loud. But these amps are my go-to grab as far as a test amp, and oh, should we hear the Fender? Here's the sheesh. That's what the drive cranked, you know. Yeah, it's the best sounding mini amp that I have here. You want to hear the Marshall? Yeah, I think that one's got some adhesive on it, so it doesn't come down as easy. But yeah, here I got the Marshall here. Oh, you can hear that one too. Look at that; they all have batteries in them too. So here's the. Oh, I gotta give it to the Marshall. Marshall sounds really good. There was more background noise. And mind you, I've got this really noisy CRT on here. Let me shut this off. If you heard any interference on the fender, oh, here's the distortion on the. It's really loud. And you know what? You have to crank it. So I'm gonna put this down. Yeah, the Mini Marshall ms-2, that's probably the one that you want. The Fender Dual Deluxe. Guitar sounds terrible. I don't know. It's they're all really got their own timbrality to them. Kind of depends on. This is the first act. Now I'll turn the distortion on. I'm going to turn it with the speaker facing down. So yeah, the first act really isn't bad. The Marshall, though, has a really mellow, nice sound to it. I think that would be the one that I would pick if I only had one to go on. The only thing about the Marshall is the distortion. When you turn on the built-in distortion, it's so intense. The Fender Clean, you can get a little bit of breakup with that sounds more natural, maybe, as opposed to such an intense distortion with the Marshall. So if you like real high gain stuff, maybe you'd be able to use the Mini Marshall. It's just that when you turn the distortion on, you have to crank it, and it's kind of shrill sounding. It's a little bit much, These things, they're never really easy to get them to sound good. They're not really made. They're more of a utility thing, and that's why I prefer, this is my preferred one, the Go amp, because I can hang it up. I've got it hanging here. It's got a little wire where the belt clip, I can drop the belt clip onto this picture hanging wire that I fashioned using 2 drywall screws on the end of a wooden TV tray. So I can slide this amp into its little holder, and it's always there whenever I'm working on a project in this room. I know that amp will be there. So when I finish with the project and I'm going to want to test my work, I grab the first act MA203, I think was the model number. And this new one, I really can't foresee myself. I don't know if I'm going to really fall in love with it and be something that I use a lot, or if it's going to be more of a gimmick and something that's going to be here that I'm going to feel like I have to store it because I don't want to get rid of it, but it's not really serving much purpose. So we'll have to see in the long run. I really think this is something I could probably get my money back on it, especially because I only paid $26 for it. I could probably sell it for $35 really quickly. Anyway, you guys, thanks for chatting about mini amps. That's one topic I could go on forever about. I don't like the huge amps. I've got a Roland JC120 here. I got another similar amp that's made by Yamaha. And I've got a 15-inch keyboard amp that has 4 inputs on it. I got another JTM 45 that's got 2 12s. It's a combo JTM 45. And those are the amps in the house that get the least amount of play. The mini amps, the stuff that you could fart around and build yourself on a weekend, those are the ones that I use all the time because I'm living in an apartment and I don't want to. I couldn't, if I wanted the dirty guitar sound and that's all I had, it's too loud. So there's other ways of getting those sounds here. Specifically using amp modeling on a newer or a more modern digital amp modeling device where you can custom load your own impulse response and edit your own patches, tweak them to your playing style and your guitar. You can get, the sound is a little different than what you would consider with an amplifier in a room, that effect amp in a room effect. The effect is much more what I would describe as a mastered album guitar. Like if the difference between listening to a Pink Floyd album and what Dave Gilmour's guitar sounds like on that album, or being in the room with the guitar are two totally different sounds. They're the same in one sense of the root, but that's what you get from the amp modeling. And a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people, it's unnatural and it doesn't feel normal to them. But for me, I've been able to embrace all that no problem, and I love those sounds even more so that now when I play with an amp, I find myself really longing for the convenience and the sound of the mastered album where you have everything is pre-programmed, and the delay time is in tempo with the song, and there's a noise gate on it, and you know it's been well thought out and shaped from point A to point B, EQ'd perfectly, you know. So yeah, they're two different things, and sometimes there's guys out there that like to try to put one above the other. What's important to remember is it only should matter to you what you're playing through, and what it sounds like at the end of the day is what's important. So that should give you a lot of room as far as how you get there. It should be open for your interpretation. As long as you're having fun and you like your sound, don't worry about what anybody else is going to think, even if you're playing through a first act MA203. But at the same time, the ms-2 sounds better, I think. Ultimately, if they're priced this cheaply and you're finding them at secondhand stores, you can afford to have a collection of these things and be able to pick and choose which one you would want to use. What's even more fulfilling is making your own. And that's the stuff that I use the most. I have a Roland microcube chassis here that we put a little oval speaker in it and built a 3-watt Class D chip amp into it with a single toggle switch, a little blue power LED. It's got a 1/4-inch input on the top panel and a single pot for the volume, which is like a Marshall knob. It's the same knob that's on a Marshall. So this amp, it says Roland on the front, and it's got a oval, like a 4-inch speaker that's really old speaker. And then just a single input, single power switch, single power lamp, and a volume knob. And that's probably the amp that I play through the most. It's part of a stereo pair. On the other end is a Anchor AN100. And I guess I could, if you're still here, I can show you what that looks like. It's a personal monitor. Anchor, what did I say? NM? AN100. And we got this for, it may have been $10 or $15. It's got a volume, treble, and bass control. There's a little tweeter here. There's a sub port here. And then on the back, there's instrument, mic, or line-in jacks, and a power switch. So yeah, if you're an audio guy and you ever see one of these little monitors, you'd grab it just as fast as I did. I was only upset that they didn't have us. Oh, look at how cool it looks sitting that way. Oh man, does that look cool? That's how you put them. Maybe I'll have to move mine. I've got it laying down, but it's real easy to grab the knobs the way it is. If I turned it on its side, my arm is reaching in from here. So I don't think I will. But I built the other amp, which is the gutted Roland microcube that has the oval speaker and the 3-watt chip amp that sits across from this. And my practice rig is a NUX MG300, which is a budget multi-effector, amp modeler, and cabinet simulator that looks like this. And it has tap tempo, so you can sync all your delays and everything. It's a really good sounding multi-effector. Like my big boy rig is an MG30, which is this one. And this is a little bit more impressive than the 300. It's also harder to get a good sound on it. The little cheapo plastic one, man, anything you spin these knobs to, it all sounds good. It all sounds good to phenomenally great. This thing sounds so good. The little brother. And then I bought the MG30 and I wrote down the numbers for all of the settings. Because it's the same model, supposedly, and I typed them all in, and it was totally didn't sound right. So I had to go back and start from scratch and develop a different ear for this device, which is much more nuanced, really good sounding. And if you're a guitar player in 2025 and you're not using amp modeling, dude, what the fuck's your problem? Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. I always like to say, hug your pets. That's the most important thing. And peace.